Grab your Coke, a Big Mac, because we're about to roast the weirdest parts of the Marvel fandom. Ever met someone who talks about Marvel but makes you want to slowly walk into the ocean? Well, you're not alone, because this world is full of people who act like they know everything. Some folks treat these legendary stories like their math homework. Others treat them like a boxing match where nobody actually throws a real punch. We call these people LARPers because they're basically just playing a character instead of actually reading the books. It's time to dive into the shallow end of the pool to see who's making a splash for all the wrong reasons. The power scalers. Imagine walking into a party and seeing someone trying to use a ruler to measure a drawing of a fist. These are the power scalers who think that comics are just physical textbooks with better costumes. First off, they don't care about the plot or the feelings of all the characters at all. Instead, they spend their whole lives counting pixels on a screen to see how fast a laser beam moves. They think a hero should win every fight just because they lifted a big rock 40 years ago. Here's the thing. Stan Lee famously said that the person who wins a fight is just whoever the writer wants to win. But to a power scaler, that's basically a crime against humanity in math. What makes it even worse is that they ignore all the cool stuff that actually makes a story good. They don't care about the Hulk's Immortal Hulk run by Al Ewing, where things get spooky and deep. They only care about the World Breaker era, because that is when he smashed a whole planet into tiny bits. On top of that, they do the same to the Sentry, where by ignoring his mental health struggles, they just want to brag about how he ripped Ares in half like a piece of wet paper. It's like they're playing a video game, but they forgot to turn on the actual game part. They turn every comment section into a loud shouting match about power levels and tier lists. I think they're super annoying because you can't even talk about the art without them bringing up a spreadsheet. If you try to tell them that a story is sad, they'll just tell you it doesn't matter. They will say the character is outerversal or some other world that sounds like a fake brand of vitamins. Honestly, these guys are probably just looking at a sunset and trying to calculate how many joules of energy are hitting their eyes. Anyway, if you want to see someone with a calculator near a comic, just tell them that Gwen Stacy could beat Thanos if the writer was high. MCU only and comics only people. Some people think that the movie theater is the only place where Marvel exists, and that's a huge problem. These MCU-only fans walk into a shop and get mad that Star-Lord isn't acting like a goofy space pirate. They think the movies are the real version and the comics are just some old scribbles for kids. It's like going to a pizza place and getting mad that they have dough and sauce. Furthermore, they get totally confused when the Avengers and X-Men don't act like the best friends on the page. They do not realize that these characters have decades of messy drama that would make a soap opera look chill. Then you have the comics only fans who are the grumpy grandpas of the nerd world. They hate everything Marvel Studios does because they think it's too simple for their big smart brains. These guys are the ultimate LARPers of the I was here first club, and they love to gatekeep. If a kid likes Guardians because of the movies, the purists will scream about the 1990 team. They will act like you're a fake person if you haven't read every issue from the year 1974. Both sides are basically just arguing over which flavor of ice cream is the most correct one. What makes it even more annoying is that they refuse to see how both versions can be cool. The movie fans miss out on great art, and comic fans miss out on the fun of the big screen. They just sit in their own corners and throw digital rocks at each other for no reason at all. It makes the hobby feel like a war zone instead of a place to enjoy cool superheroes. You can't even mention a movie without a purist telling you why the comic book was 10 times better. Meanwhile, the movie fan is just wondering why the comic book characters don't look exactly like famous actors. In short, if you think Chris Pratt actually invented the Guardians of the Galaxy, you might want to check a calendar from 40 years ago. The Wiki Walkers. Have you ever met someone who sounds like they know everything until you ask them a single follow-up question? These are the Wiki Walkers, who spend all day on the Marvel database instead of holding a real book. They could tell you the name of a planet, but they have no idea what actually happened on it. It's like someone who memorizes the menu of a restaurant, but has never actually eaten any of the food. First off, they love to drop big names like Kron Crystal just to sound like a genius. They know it is the nexus of all realities because a website told them that in one short sentence. However, they haven't actually read the Phoenix Saga to feel the actual fear that Chris Claremont wrote. On top of that, They talk about the ultimate nullifier like it was a simple delete key on a keyboard. They completely miss the vibe of the Galactus trilogy, where the item represented the end of the whole world. These folks are basically just reading the spark notes of the universe and pretending they are the main professor. I think it's even funnier that they often get things wrong because they miss the context of the story. They don't understand retcons or when a character is lying to another character because the wiki is too simple. If you try to talk about why Peter Parker feels guilty, they'll just go totally silent and stare. Essentially, they treat lore like a pile of trivia facts to win an argument rather than a story about humans. It's like they're trying to build a house using only pictures of bricks instead of using real ones. They're basically LARPers who are pretending to be experts while their brains are just full of random internet tabs. You can usually catch them when they quote a fact that was actually changed in a book 10 years ago. Basically, if your entire Marvel education comes from a website with ads of car insurance, you're not a fan. You're just a human search engine. The collectors. Some people see a comic book and see a beautiful story, but these guys just see a pile of money. The investor is the type of person who buys a book and then immediately puts it in a plastic box. They never open the book and they never read the words because they're terrified of the value dropping. To them, Marvel is just a weird version of the stock market where people wear capes and tight spandex. Here's why they can come off as annoying. These folks were the ones who almost ruined the entire industry back in the 1990s. They bought 10 copies of every gimmick cover with foil or holograms just to sell them for more later. What makes it even more annoying is that they drive the prices up for people who actually want to read. They obsess over the CGC 9.8 grades like it's a holy number that will save their souls from being poor. They might own a perfect copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15, but they probably don't know why Uncle Ben died. They don't care about the art or the cool layouts in a book like Daredevil by a creative team. They just care if the first appearance tag in the plastic case is going to make them rich one day. It turns the local comic shop into a boring office where everyone's talking about profit margins and trade. On top of that, they treat cultural milestones like they're bars of gold sitting in a dark vault. It is a very lonely way to enjoy a hobby that's supposed to be about imagination and bright colors. These LARPers are basically just bankers who decided that paper with pictures on it was a safe place to hide money. They make it really hard for a regular kid to afford a cool book because they bought them all. I hope your plastic-wrapped comic book keeps you warm at night because it's definitely never going to give you an actual personality. The political tourists. The internet has brought us many things, but it also brought us people who use comics to start huge fights. These are the political tourists who only care about a book if it helps them win a debate online. They don't actually care if the story's good or if the art looks like it was drawn by a cat. Firstly, they will defend a terrible book just because it says something they agree with on social media. On top of that, they will attack a great book if it has a person they don't like on the team. They're LARPers who are pretending to be fans just to push their own personal agenda on everyone else. It's even worse when you know that they don't often have read the issues they are yelling about all day. During the all-new, all-different era, these people turned the whole fandom into a total nightmare of bad vibes. One side called everyone names for having an opinion, while the other side hated books before they even came out. They didn't care about the actual writing in Captain America Sam Wilson by Nick Spencer at all. They just wanted to use the characters as flags to wave their own little digital war for clout. It makes it impossible to have a real talk about things like pacing or if the dialogue is actually good. If you say a story is boring, they will immediately accuse you of being a bad person with a secret plan. They ignore the fact that Marvel has always been political, and like when Captain America punched Hitler in the face. But these old stories were always about great characters first, and the politics were just a natural part of that. These new tourists just want to shout, and they don't care if they ruin the fun for everyone else. For me personally, it must be really exhausting to look at a comic book and see a political manifesto instead of a guy flying around in a metal suit. The retro elitists. Some fans act like the world ended in 1989 and everything after that is just a big pile of garbage. These are the retro elitists who think that no new writer can ever be as good as the old legends. They worship people like Chris Claremont or Frank Miller like they're the only ones who ever held a pen. While those guys are awesome, the elitists use them as a shield to hate on anything new or different. First off, they act like LARPers of the good old days, even if they weren't even born back then. They think the medium has been on a slow death slide for 30 years because things changed a little bit. What makes it even more annoying is that they refuse to see the brilliance of modern creators like Jonathan Hickman. If he does something cool with the Fantastic Four, they just moan that it isn't fun enough for them. They think every book should be exactly like it was when they were kids or when their parents were kids. On top of that, they ignore that the old creators were actually the ones who loved to break all the rules. If a writer like Chip Zdarsky makes a deep story about Daredevil, they say it's too dark and edgy. They want the world to stay in a glass case like a museum where nothing ever moves or grows at all. This makes new fans feel like they aren't allowed to like the cool stuff that is coming out right now. They gatekeep the hobby by acting like you have to pass a history test before you can enjoy a story. It's a very stagnant way to live, and it makes the whole community feel like a dusty old library. Congratulations on living in the past. I bet you're still waiting for your rotary phone to ring with some very important news. The lore leechers. Technology is great, but it also created the lore leecher who only knows Marvel from 60-second video clips on their phone. These people have never turned a physical page, but they act like they have a PhD in mutant history. They watch a TikTok of Magneto doing something mean, and suddenly they think they are an expert on his life. One bad thing about this is that they miss all the small details that make these stories actually meaningful and deep over the years. They don't know how long the debates between Magneto and Charles Xavier because a short video can't show that. On top of that, they love to spread headcanons, which are basically just fan theories that they are real facts. What makes it even crazier is how they talk about huge events like the House of M with zero real context. They know the line "no more mutants," but they don't know the tragedy of Wanda Maximoff's actual mental health crisis. They don't understand the years of tension that led to the event or the decimation that happened right after it. They just want the cool moments so they can post them and get likes from other people who don't read. These LARPers treat the Marvel multiverse like a highlight reel instead of a long, beautiful story about life and loss. They argue with people who have read every issue by using facts they saw in a video with loud music. It makes the conversation very shallow because nobody's actually talking about the art style of Oliver Copel anymore. They just want to know who did the cool thing so they can feel like they're part of the club. Watching a 1-minute video about a book doesn't make you a fan. It just means you have the attention span of a goldfish. The relationship warriors. If you think the most important part of a superhero story is who is kissing who, you might be a shipper. These are the relationship warriors who treat Marvel like a romantic novel and ignore everything else about the plot. They get so obsessed with a ship that they will actually harass real human writers on the internet. They view these heroes as dolls that they could smash together to make their own fanfiction come true. They don't care about lore or character growth if it gets in the way of their favorite couple being together. For example, these are the people who haven't stopped crying about Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson's marriage. While the One More Day story was definitely weird, these fans take their anger to a very scary and toxic level. They will hate a perfectly good story just because Peter's dating someone else or is just hanging out alone. Not to mention, they make the X-Men fandom feel like a high school hallway full of rumors and drama. They fight over the love triangle between Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine like it's the only thing that matters. They will ignore how Scott Summers became a revolutionary icon just because they're mad he likes Emma Frost now. It's annoying because it reduces comic epics and deep character studies into simple he said she said stories. These LARPers don't want to see heroes save the world, they just want to see them hold hands in a specific way. They flood the comments with complaints about canon pairings instead of talking about the actual quality of the art. So yeah, maybe you should try reading a real romance book instead of just getting mad that a guy in a spider suit is single. The end note. The real frustration here isn't just about being a gatekeeper, telling people they aren't allowed to have any fun. It's actually about protecting the soul of a medium that has been around for over 80 years for a reason. When people only talk about market value or power levels, the hard work of the artists and writers get lost. A comic book is a very special thing that asks you to use your imagination to fill the gaps between panels. It's a marriage of words and pictures that tells stories in a way that no movie or wiki can ever do. To be a real fan, you just have to be willing to actually sit down and meet the story on its own terms. You have to feel the weight of the choices these characters make and the struggle of their very human lives. When LARPers treat these stories like data points or political flags, they miss the magic that makes Marvel so special. The House of Ideas was built on complexity, heart, and a lot of very weird and wonderful imagination from many people. You can't capture that feeling with a spreadsheet or a 60-second clip on a phone screen with captions. Only by reading the pages and looking at the art can you really understand the beauty of the Marvel multiverse. So guys, put down the calculator and the price guide and just pick up a book to see what happens next. The real fans are the ones who are still here for the story, even when the characters aren't winning a fight. If you made it this far without getting mad, you're probably not one of the people we just spent 40 minutes roasting. Keep reading and keep caring about the art, because the world has enough spreadsheets, but it can always use more heroes. The Marvel Universe is huge, and there's room for everyone, as long as you actually care about the stories being told. Just enjoy the ride, and remember that the best part of being a fan is the sense of wonder you get. Now, go find a comic book, open it up, and actually read the words instead of just looking at the price tag. That's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers, and see you in the next one.